Okay, so it's my pleasure to welcome you to the New Jersey Butterfly Club's June meeting. And we have a special presenter today who is Tyler Fishman. He actually found out about the club on his own and reached out to us to give this presentation. And I said, yes, definitely. So he's going to be presenting to us on captive rearing of Great Spangled Fritillaries. So Tyler, you can take it away.
Thank you, Edmund. Hi, good evening. It's nice to see some new faces. Um, I'm a new presenter, so bear with me in case I have any flops, but there shouldn't be. So I chose a topic of captive rearing of the Great Spangled Fritillary, and just some background. This is a notoriously difficult butterfly to raise. It's not like a monarch we put in a pop-up cage with milkweed, and there's going to be a lot going into it. And it's 50 slides. Most of them are pictures. All the pictures are mine. I don't get any from the internet. They're all my own. And I'll go into some of my background and talk about the butterflies, life history, and taxonomy a little bit, and we'll get into it.
Just have to click on. I think it's the Zoom.
Oh, okay. So just about me, a large portion of my youth was spent in Jacksonville, Florida, which is a paradise for a young nature lover. I have an underlying passion for butterflies. I could trace some of my earliest memories to catching them and admiring their beauty and fragility. I developed a strong passion for botany in my junior year of high school, actually, and I set my life on course to study plants. I did a lot of work with plants in college. I worked at my college's university, William Patterson University, where I introduced 150 species of special concern, many of which are rare and endangered. I see my interest in butterflies as something that has come full circle to my comprehension of botany, and I explore my interest through photography and art. That's me as a kid in Florida with a Palamedes swallowtail, I believe. I wasn't really fond of pictures. My dad would always take them of me at the worst time. And there's me with my plants at William Patterson. It's a big banana leaf. And that's some of my art. So my work, so what I do, in 2023, I joined Restore Native Plants Incorporated, an environmental foundation located in Bergen County in the beautiful Ramapo State Forest. Our foundation's mission is to restore degraded habitat and promote native plants. We have restored 14 acres by clearing invasive species and cleaning refuse left by people. Here, I propagate native plants for restoration purposes to increase wildlife value of the habitat. So that's my greenhouse and my nursery, and little photos of them. Do some native plantings. This is our native meadow. This is a striker event. We had them plant some New England aster, milkweed, and some other stuff I grew. Invasive species removal. So this is us removing some, looks like bittersweet. There's our invasive species specialist, Matthew Simonelli on the right. Very bright man. And that's most of our team. So we have something very special on our property, and the big question is why? So the Great Spangled Fritillary, I'll refer to it as the GSF or as Cybele or Speyeria Cybele. I'll get into it more. So the Great Spangled Fritillary is a brush-footed butterfly in the Invallidae family. It is in the genus Speyeria, the greater fritillaries. It is in the tribe Argini and is represented by 100 species in North America. These are impressive small to medium-sized butterflies typically found in meadows, open woods, and woodland border habitat. S. acebale is widespread throughout North America, but has several distinct subspecies. In eastern North America, we have the nominate subspecies of the Great Spangled Fritillary. S. acebale is present. This species prefers open habitats, moist woodlands, meadows, and roadsides. So these are the two representatives of the tribe in Bergen County. At least I believe these are the ones I have seen in Ramapo State Forest. So there's the Great Spangled, and then we have the variegated E. Claudia, which is I haven't seen that much of, but that was a picture I got of one on some dead grass. So challenges of this butterfly. So populations of the Great Spangled Fritillary are stable throughout their range. However, it's likely they're declining downwards, especially in densely populated areas, urbanized areas of the East Coast. Threats include broad spectrum herbicides, pesticides, habitat loss, invasive species, modern land management techniques such as landscaping, traditional lawns, and leaf blowing. Fire suppression is a big one, climate change, of course, and even genetic bottlenecking due to fragmentation. So they're not migratory. They stay in one area relatively their whole life. A closely related species, and a more beautiful one, I believe, Speyeria Cybele was once present in New Jersey, but has been extirpated due to loss of habitat. So the idea that this butterfly, Great Spangled Fritillary, becoming extinct or extirpated in the state is a feasible reality. As urbanization continues and climate change worsens, this fritillary faces more of a precarious future. So their host plant is our state flower, the violet, and the genus Viola is very speciose. There's 100 species of violet. So where I am in Ramapo State Forest, where the fritillaries are, we have Viola fringulata, V. Aurelia, our state flower, blue violet, and V. labradorica. Violets are common throughout New Jersey. They're often perceived as weeds growing people's lawns. The blue violet is found everywhere. Like I said, lawns, roadsides, parks, fields. And it would seem, since humans have created a favorable habitat for the host plant, this butterfly would be more abundant. Kind of like, even though monarchs are declining, we still find milkweed in urban areas and roadsides, and we do find monarchs frequently, but we don't see the Great Spangled Fritillary that frequently. So a big thing is lawns, and this is one of our properties that we have at my job. It's actually a commercial residence, and we have a native meadow outside it. And this is the property on the right that's bordering our native meadow. And you can see, take a guess at which side has more diversity in terms of wildlife value. So lawns are obviously detrimental and are the mainstay of our urban developments, and they're ecological deserts. They provide little to no value for butterflies, at least most of them. Invasive species. So plants are a big ones. Things like mugwort, which you can see in the backdrop here. We have a native meadow in front, and you can see it looks like eupatorium and grass-leaved goldenrod, and there's a sneezeweed in the corner. Bonus points if you find the monarch. But yeah, you can see that slowly over time, this biodiverse landscape is going to be taken up by a monoculture. And then for forests, things like stilt grass are a big one. So this is a stilt grass lawn in the forest, and stilt grass, Japanese stilt grass, can grow in basically no light. And on the left, there's a bush. That's a Japanese barberry, and that's as you might know, another pervasive invasive species. So the life cycle of this butterfly is really unique, and it's what sets it apart from most others. Speyeria, the genus, encompasses a unique technique to its survival. Compared with most butterflies, which are migratory or overwinter as adults, or pupae or larger larvae, butterflies in this genus overwinter as teeny, 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 tiny first instar caterpillars. Females may harbor hundreds of eggs and oviposit late in the summer around stands of their host plant. Caterpillars will not begin feeding usually until the following spring. Caterpillar mortality is dependent on stable conditions, an example, snow, insulation, stable climate, and lack of disturbance. Caterpillars emerge in early spring and have 6 instar phases, and pupation typically occurs from April to early May. Adults are long-lived, typically from 30 to 45 days. Males emerge first, and followed by females. They have a long flight period from June to October. And that's a female I saw around Halloween. So it was pretty warm last year. She was a weathered warrior on that bergamot. So I began rearing them in September of 2024, and I got eggs off a friend, and this is one of the first to hatch, and that is a little forcep head, little tweezers, and that thing is microscopic. You could breathe on it and fly off, so I was very careful in taking a picture. So September 25th, hatching, you see the egg, it's just eating it. So that's probably the only meal it will have until next spring, is its eggshell. So that's flash forward to March of this year, and there's your little guy on a viola leaf, nearly 6 months later. But getting it to this point is the hard part. And another butterfly, I said before that some butterflies overwinter as larvae are, so dusky wings will do this. So this is a wild indigo dusky wing, Arenis baptisiae, and it's actually surrounded itself with baptisia or indigo leaves, and it constructs kind of a silken cocoon. And I kind of cut a window in it so I could get a nice picture of the caterpillar. But it also overwinters as a caterpillar, but notably, it has its own little shelter, and it's big and fat, so it's able to has some energy stores. These little fritillary caterpillars have basically nothing. Um, So the habitat of this butterfly, the Great Spangled Fritillary, is imperiled. It is dependent on open habitats for survival and reproduction. It prefers moist, semi-dry woodlands and woodland border habitats, meadows, and old fields. Males can be seen patrolling roadsides on sunny days, darting quickly between plants like milkweed. Females may be a little more cryptic, found later in the season, flying low in woodlands. Their preferred nectar plants are also found in these meadow habitats. Include mints, thistles are a big one, and so is milkweeds, particularly Asclepias tuberosa or butterfly milkweed. So here's a semi-dry woodland in Ramapo. Here's a little mesic open wood, and you can see the nice lush Pennsylvania sedge. And meadow, and this is one of the meadows we have, and you can see the spicebush swallowtails, and I think that's a silver-spotted skipper flying. And there's lots of plants there. There's the pink is bergamot, the tall one is ironweed, and the low-growing one is flat grass-leaved goldenrod. Nice biodiverse meadow. An old field. This is a grass meadow we have, primarily dominated by little blue stem and purple top grass, but you can see there's purple love grass there. These are all great skipper host plants and satyr host plants too. And here is our shining gem, or fritillary. That's a nice male. And here's another one on bergamot. So now we get to the captive rearing. So it requires a lot of planning. Ultimately, it should only be reared if there's suitable habitat to release them into. So things you're going to want are the eggs, of course, plastic pill bottles, a plastic container, a wine cooler, floral tubes, a deli cup with a lid perforated with ventilation holes, plants of Viola cornuta and Viola tricolor, so pansies and violas, a paintbrush, fine tip forceps, plastic pots, a grow light, electric timer, and small fans. So all these are kind of listed together. Some of these are for air circulation. Some of them are to keep the plants healthy and happy, and I'll kind of go into the setup. So the overwintering process, eggs hatch around 1.5 weeks post oviposition at 22 centigrade and 60% humidity. Larvae are transitioned to pill containers immediately upon hatching and are left near a windowsill for approximately 48 hours to prepare them for winter dormancy. During this phase, the larvae will construct a silken pad below themselves that they will adhere to all winter. After the pill bottles containing the caterpillars are transitioned to a container filled with 1/2 inch of water to retain humidity. It is quintessential that the larvae do not dry out or get too wet. This method allows humidity to passively enter the pill bottles without getting too much moisture, and I'll show you a picture. The larvae are transitioned to a wine cooler refrigerator with the temperature set to 0.6 degrees centigrade. So wine coolers are good because you can adjust the temperature. And also they have a glass door so you can see in and natural light can get in, and your circadian rhythm can kind of match up with that. Weekly monitoring of the caterpillars is done to tweak water levels in the plastic container and check for mortalities, fungal issues, moisture issues, etc. But here you go. This is the little containers. Not the best picture, but it's got, believe it or not, there's water in there. And then inside the container, there's pill bottles. And the pill bottles have the caterpillars inside. And the moisture can still enter the pill bottles, but not too much. And they can drown if they get too much moisture. So you can see the whole thing looks pretty humid, and that's kind of what you want. So I kept this in the wine cooler all winter. So emerging from diapause, trays of pansies and violas are grown under LED lights. I started this project in the winter, so I couldn't grow them outside. After about 6 months, the diapause caterpillars are taken out of the fridge and allowed to come to room temperature, thaw essentially, and are transitioned to the apexes of their host plant via paintbrush. Sprigs of viola are placed in floral tubes for hydration and in a deli cup. The whole setup is placed under grow lights to mimic a day-night cycle. The environment is kept super clean, ventilated with fans, and kept around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Host plants are given water daily as they're sucking up water like flowers in a vase, and are changed out accordingly as caterpillars begin to feed. Caterpillars are left to grow on their host plant until pupation. So here's the violas under a grow light. Nice lush plants. Here's the two in my greenhouse. So we have violas on the right and pansies on the left. And here we go. So there's your little Great Spangled Fritillary caterpillar. There's one on the left and one, if you can hardly see, on that leaf on the upper right. And this is the setup. So you can see there's a little floral tube that I've connected the pansy sprigs to, and there's a little cap, so it fits snug into the cap so the caterpillars can't get in and drown. And this is all in like a little deli cup that you get at ShopRite or something. So here's the stages. So I forgot which instars these were, but I think it's like 1, 2, 4. You can see that they're very unique looking. And here is your 6 instar caterpillar. They're quite large. That's it on my hand. There's a close-up. It's an alien looking thing. Really mean looking, but those tubercles, they can't hurt you. And you can see in comparison to the other photo, I have the forceps that I held that caterpillar on next to it. And you can see it's like standing next to a bus. There's it in the J position getting ready to pupate. And that's the chrysalis. It looks like varnished wood. It's relative, the variegated fritillary. It's a very unique looking chrysalis. It's kind of flashy. It's got gold and white on it. And I was kind of surprised that the chrysalis looks like this. But it makes sense because it would be mimicking probably like a bark that would be pupating on. Some chrysalises stand out, but this one's like really camouflaged. So it takes approximately 2 weeks for them to close from this chrysalis. And here's your butterfly. He's a nice male. He's very, the fresh butterflies are insanely orange, more so than the monarch. And so some notes in reflection. So I received 12 eggs and 12 caterpillars were put through dormancy. However, only 6 survived. With many hundreds of eggs, Speyeria lay, not all of them are going to be quality. Issues such as temperature fluctuations occurred, mold, lack of moisture, and subsequent desiccation happened. Out of the 6 surviving larvae, only 2 made it past the 3rd instar phase. This is likely due to the use of violas instead of pansies as a host plant. Violas have more trichomes or hairs. It is likely that some caterpillar larvae cannot expend the energy needed to chew through these hairs. Larvae seem to always prefer the glabrous or hairless pansies as opposed to the violets. The Great Spangled Fritillary always seem to position themselves at the very apices of the plant where the foliage is most tender. So there's ways we can support these butterflies and all butterflies in general. And that is by creating habitat, planting native plants for the fritillary that it depends upon, like thistles, violas, Monarda, milkweed, mowing later in the season, so no mow May if you're familiar, blowing leaves and removing brush later in the season as well helps. And avoiding using harmful insecticides and pesticides like Roundup, and promoting awareness for the species. These, like I said, they don't only benefit the Great Spangled Fritillary, but many other species of butterfly as well. Here's some little pasture thistles, Cirsium discolor. I cooked up in my greenhouse this spring. They're quite large now. But that was it a couple months ago. Here's some Monarda I'm growing. Very attractive garden plant. You can make a tea out of it. Tastes pretty good. And you can landscape with native plants. Like this is a little viola, violet hedge thing, but it looks very pretty. That's at our founder's house. And yeah, thank you. That's about it for the rearing of the Great Spangled Fritillary. Any questions?
How long after they close do you keep them in captivity before you release them?
So I kept these in captivity indefinitely because so they lived and died in captivity because I did it too early in the year. So I have them still. Ideally I'd do it later, but I had a fear that since I lost so many caterpillars, they uh wouldn't survive. So I took them out early. I grew the violets early, but so they were in captivity in my greenhouse. So they weren't like confined in a cage or anything. But these were ideally you do it kind of matching up with the natural emergence of the caterpillars in spring. So probably around April. I'd started in March.
Will you be continuing your project?
Yeah, I'd love to. It takes a lot and it's a lot of work, but I love raising butterflies. I've been doing it as a kid since I was a kid. So yeah, you don't learn butterflies until you raise them and see how their life cycle is and have their interactions with their host plant and stuff like that. So yeah, I do see myself doing this again.
Would you be releasing
Yeah.
them eventually in the meadows that you're creating?
Right. So this is kind of a trial just to see if I could do it. And I could. And I learned and hopefully I can kind of master the technique so I can produce more and release more as these butterflies become more threatened. I think it's more imperative that captive culture of these organisms does happen just to support their population. So it does have its use.
How big is the meadow that you showed in the presentation that you were restoring?
That's probably an acre. Yeah, so it's about an acre. But it's got a lot of diversity in terms of plant. We're always adding natives and removing invasives. But it's reached a point where it's kind of matured. So we have a lot of large, healthy native specimens in there that kind of stave off any invasives that try to grow.
How many different species have you raised?
Probably, I don't know off the top of my head, probably like 10, including moths.
Do you get any school children interested in doing this?
Could you repeat the question?
Have you occasioned to meet up with any school children that might be interested in doing this,
Um,
or teachers?
I have yet to find an outlet where I would love to do that, but I've yet to find an outlet where I can do that. It is an option. And I hope to explore it. I would like to get future generations interested in this kind of thing.
My question is about, you came to a tentative conclusion about viola versus pansies. That you thought they did better on the pansies rather than the viola. But of course, in nature, almost you're assuming that, you know, up in North Jersey, they're gonna be eating in the wild viola. Pansies are around, but they're really not all that abundant in, for instance, Sussex County. But, so I would assume that they are, born to like viola. So I'm wondering about whether that conclusion is, would be supported by wild grown butterflies.
Right. I chose violas and pansies because it was an easy thing to acquire. And they grow fast, so you'll have a lot of forage for the caterpillars in a short amount of time. Whereas if I had to wait until the blue violets and other species came up, it would have taken more time. So I just kind of had to think how I can feed these caterpillars early in the season, and that was with pansies. And other people have raised this butterfly as well, not the first, and they've reported success with pansies. But you're right, they're not seeking out pansy plants like planted outside people's houses. They're going for like Viola Ceroria or Viola labradorica. That's the species they're seeking out. It was just something I did so that I would have enough host plant to feed these caterpillars.
I see you use LED grow lights. Are they pretty good compared to the old fluorescent grow lights? Because I used to grow years ago with fluorescent, but I haven't tried the LED ones. They would use less power too, right? Less electricity.
They're a lot more efficient, and the spectrum they put out is better. I still use fluorescent lights. I like the output that some like T8s and T5s they're still used in horticulture to grow plants, but it's primarily LEDs is used in horticulture now, and they're a lot more efficient. They're a lot brighter. They save a lot more energy. I recommend using them. I do. I grow all kinds of plants under LEDs, so that is an option you can explore.
I know, fritillaries are one of the groups that the female does not lay the egg directly on the host plant, just like in the general area. So I'm wondering, is the kind of theory, the hypothesis is that, because when the caterpillar emerges from the egg, it goes into diapause very quickly, and it's not really consuming any nutrients before entering diapause, is that right?
Yeah,
So
besides their eggshell.
so then basically there's no reason, I guess, for the female to lay that egg on the host plants if it's just going to go into diapause so quickly.
Yeah, that's also true. In some lab experiments, they have the host plant, and then they have like pieces of cardboard, and the female will go around and lay eggs on the cardboard.
Yeah.
So they don't. So that could be a mechanism that occurs. So yeah. Any other questions?
If this is successful, would you try to bring back like silver bordered or rebuild?
That would be a lot of red tape to do that. I guess you'd have to work with APHIS or something. But it could, I mean, if there's funding for it, why not? Right? So
Yeah.
no habitat either, right?
Okay.
We need the habitat, which is a big one.
You're reading, about the various species of fritillary. Have you come across anything that tells you whether all the fritillaries are using violets, okay? Is there any specificity to the species that they're using? From species to species, or are they all just indiscriminately laying on whatever they can find?
What I found was disappointing in that there's a lack of data on that. So there's not well studied. I suppose that one could go out and follow 100 female fritillaries and see if there's a preference statistically. That's something that is yet to be known as far as I'm concerned. I think there was one for the blue fritillary, which the name I'm blanking on. I think they preferred a glabrous species of viola, but I can't remember the study. But yeah, there probably is a preference. I don't know.
I've always felt that the violets are, first of all, hard to tell apart from
Mhm.
humans.
Very.
And I'm sure they're better at it, but yeah, I would hope. But the other thing is that all the literature has always said that they don't always or often maybe even lay on the plants.
Mhm.
They lay near
Right.
violets. And so, yeah, that's another complication. I don't know how you would even set up a study to try to find it, but I just wondered if you'd come across anything.
Well, it's interesting because they definitely don't seem to like the ones with trichomes or hairs. It seems to be a barrier because these caterpillars are probably the size of the hairs that the violets have. So to chew through that, they spend a lot of energy. So they probably would prefer something that doesn't have any hairs, is easy to eat, is accessible. But the females lay so many eggs, she's just probably trying to get rid of them all. And whatever violet's there is fair game. I don't know. We'll see, look
I
into.
think where the readers are, I'm pretty sure they said birds with violets were the reference for the regal.
Which one?
Birds with.
Bird's foot, yeah. We don't have that much in North Jersey. Of course, South Jersey's.
There was that was two species that they preferred. Birdfoot was one and the other one I can't remember.
Yeah, but the most common one is Viola sororia, like you mentioned, but the history on that is that's lumped. I mean, when I started botanizing, we used Gray's manual in 1950, and they had a bazillion violets.
Because it's not gonna let them. Make sure you do.
Anyway, my point is that they took Viola sororia, which is a hairy violet, and lumped it with Viola papilionacea, which is a very glabrous violet. And so now that species contains all of those different ones that are, so if you use the term Viola sororia, it doesn't just mean a hairy one anymore. So, the violets are so short.
The taxonomy's changed a lot since the time you started botanizing versus the time I have. So your sororia might be different than my sororia. So, and then bird's-foot violet is also a glabrous hairless species, I believe. I think I have seen it here. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that makes sense to why the Idalia prefers that one, because it's just easier for the larvae to access. So, it just needs something that needs to be studied more. Good question.
Will you be continuing to remove invasive species in other areas? Is a long-term goal?
Yeah, so our organization is always it's a uphill battle with invasives. There's so many in Ramapo State Forest. So we're always removing invasives, burning bush, garlic mustard. We have made progress, and this species here is an example of that ongoing progress because we have pristine habitat in which it can thrive. So we're always pushing and pushing for animals like this that are sensitive and need more pristine habitat. It is Restore Native Plants Incorporated. Yeah, you can look it up. And you can plan a visit to our property. It's looking good. Milkweeds are going to bloom soon, so it's a big butterfly time. Yep.
What do you do about mugwort?
So you can't rip it up. It's impossible. You can try, but a big infestation like the one I showed you in that slide is impossible to rip up. So we use a very precise herbicide treatment that our invasive species specialist Matthew has his license for. What we do is every stem we cut and we inject an herbicide into. So that way it won't percolate into the soil. And even if he does get some in the soil, the chemical he uses has a half-life of like a month. So it'll break down super quickly. But we're not spraying indiscriminately, harming other native plants or wildlife that's there. We're taking our time, we're going slow, we're being very precise. And we're going slow and steady, and the results have been phenomenal. So anything else?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. Gary Annable here online. One, Edmund, there's some questions in the chat that if you have access to, you can, or I can read them off, whatever. But my question is there any indication that the caterpillars feed at night? Because a number of years ago, we had a really good flight of Great Spangled Fritillaries, so much so we were using a clicker out in the field to keep track of how many we would see. And I have a pretty good patch of violets in my yard, and I never found any caterpillars on them, even though I had some adults flying by in the yard. Do they feed at night, exclusively at night, and then hide during the day, or just never had caterpillars?
Yeah, so apparently they are nocturnal. I've never seen them in the wild. So that kind of confirms that.
Oh, okay.
The ones I had seemed to feed during the day, but I'd open the container that they were living in the morning, and the host plant would be like decimated. So they definitely are probably nocturnal.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. Since I still have you, I'll read off some of these questions that are in the chat.
Sure.
Unless people, but anyway, somebody has hijacked my login, and their question is, where is the restoration project and is it open to the public?
Yeah, so our organization is in Oakland. It's right off Skyline Drive. You can go on our website and shoot us an email, and we'll give you a tour. It's a public access hiking area. I think it's Van Slyke Castle's there. It's an old castle. It's like castle ruins, and that's where we perform our restoration. Open to the public, so swing by, look us up.
Okay, thank you. Janine, thanks you and wishes you continued success. Edie comments that it's definitely more challenging than rearing monarchs, and she's thinking the idea presented to schools, they would love to have students get involved. Kathy wants to know, how do you tell the male from the female Great Spangled Fritillary?
So this is a female in this picture, and it's kind of hard. It's not the easiest butterfly to tell the difference between the sexes. There's no size difference really. Females have more brown on their forewings and hindwings. So it's kind of hard to tell. This is kind of a dark picture, but she's a little darker than, I think if I go back, than him. So if I just quickly jog, you could probably hardly tell, but they are different.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And that's it, I'm assuming?
Anyone else?
Is there any other butterfly that's comparable, hard to raise like that?
Members of its genus of Speyeria. Trying to think. Anything that overwinters as a caterpillar. So they're migratory. Hackberry Emperor, were you thinking? I've never raised those. You did? The Viceroys, late season ones that overwinter in hibernacula, they can be challenging. But these guys are really probably one of the hardest, honestly. But yeah, a couple $100 of equipment. So it's like, but it's worth it. I think it's worth it because they're gorgeous, stunning animals.
We need more.
We need the habitat. Most of our meadows have been developed and turned into Walmart.
not only that, a lot of our meadows that crab are really being degraded by various invasive species. Up where we are, bed straw is becoming really bad. It's displacing native forms
Mhm.
of all kinds, and of course the mugwort.
Right.
But yeah, the quality of the meadows that we do have is degrading.
Right.
Really sad.
Monocultures of invasives, like the meadowlands, just all Phragmites. So, yeah, it's definitely a player.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.